We ask for wisdom and understanding. Pour out your spirit upon us and make these convocations work of reformation in us. And may we be strengthened and revived. We ask for forgiveness of sins that might hinder us from hearing your voice. Those sins that so easily beset us. We thank you, merciful Savior, for your grace. In Jesus' name. Amen. My apologies for not having given people notes. When I tried to transfer from my phone, I faced some challenges. So in the other presentation today, I'm hoping that the notes will be availed at that stage. So what I'll just do for now is I'll read and I'll give people the references to this morning's presentation, and then people can then go back to them when they're looking into the notes. So I'm going to be covering the latter rain and the ceiling. The latter rain and the ceiling. So our presentations with the other brethren are connected. The presentations are connected in a sense that for me to come to the conclusions that I have to come to, I need Obey's studies. But for Obey to make the conclusions that he has to use Brother Mbani's studies on the trumpets. And you can't separate the ceiling and the latter rain from the foundations, which Brother Marshall is going to be covering. So there's that connection. So it's key to follow the presentations as a complete thought. So I'm just going to give you a brief rundown of what we intend to look at. There's just no space on the board, but on the notes you're going to see the subtitles for every presentation. I don't know if we're going to do a presentation per lecture, per class, but we'll just go as far as we can go. But remember, this is a class, right? So it's interactive. So open discourse is allowed, right? So that we know we're together. That's how we learn. So what we intend to cover is introduction on the ceiling is what we want to do today, just to define it. Like just what is the ceiling, what is the latter rain, just an introduction. So we also want to cover Revelation 18. I'm not going to identify the event marked in Revelation 18. I'm just going to look at the principle. Revelation 18 verse 1, which talks about verse 1 and 2, talks about an angel coming down and lightening the earth with his glory. And verse 2 is a proclamation, Babylon is fallen, which is what we're going to zoom in on the phrase fallen is fallen, and the angel coming down and lightening the earth with the glory. And then we're going to cover the choosing of Jerusalem, which basically is the sealing. And then we're going to look at the covenant, what it means when you're being sealed, you're entering into covenant. So we're just going to look at the sealing and the latter rain from that broad perspective, so that we understand all that it encompasses. So today we're doing the introduction. So I put 3 lines here, and I have to define what these lines stand for. This is the line of Christ, right? I'll just put Christ. This is the line of Millerites. So I'll put Millerites. And this is the line of the 144,000. 144K. In these three lines, each of these three lines are a fulfillment of Joel, the book of Joel. This is what we call Joel's three histories, right? And the characteristics, there are certain characteristics in all these lines that give you a triple application of prophecy, but that are significant when you look at these lines together completely, and it brings up some other truths. So I'll give you the reference to the opening quotation, and so today not much. Today's introductory for this presentation. So this is Testimonies to Ministers, page 547. We can take down the references, but the notes are by God's grace I'll give them. But in case of any unforeseen circumstance, it's good to take them down. Sister White says, Testimonies to Ministers, page 547. Only those who are living up to the light they have will receive greater light. Unless you are daily advancing in the exemplification of active Christian virtues, we shall not recognize the manifestations of the Holy Spirit in the latter rain. It may be falling on hearts all around us, but we shall not discern or receive it. So, one of the principles that's being brought to view is that when the outpouring of the Spirit, when the latter rain is being poured, it's called a manifestation of the Spirit. Right? It's a wonderful manifestation of power, of divine power. We see that? When the latter rain is being poured. But Sister White is telling us that we need to recognize. Right? We need to recognize the latter rain. It means that it's something that you ought to know that it's falling. Because it may be falling on hearts all around you, but you personally might not be receiving it. We follow. Right? Who knows what the word recognize means in Webster's? Yeah? You're whispering.
Yes, you gave an answer.
It was like a whisper.
It's like recollect.
Yeah, which is?
I mean, like you recognize something that you've seen before.
That you've
that you know that you've seen before.
Okay, so it's something that you've seen before. It's familiar, right? You're recollecting, you're bringing back to memory. So, what does it mean when the latter rain is poured in our history? If you ought to recognize it. And to recognize means to recollect. Is the latter rain something new?
No.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's an old.
It's something that's been there in history, right? Which means that what? Repeating. For you to understand the latter rain, you need to understand it from the perspective of the repeat of history. We follow? That's just basically what's being emphasized there. This is 7 BC, 984. I don't know which paragraph, I just have 984.
So could you read 7 BC?
7 BC, yeah.
I think it's paragraph 5.
Paragraph 5.
Okay.
Oh, okay. 984.
984.
Should be paragraph 5. But, yeah. She says, we must not wait for the latter rain. It is coming upon all who will recognize and appropriate the dew and showers of grace that fall upon us. When we gather up the fragments of light, when we appreciate the sure mercies of God, who loves to have us trust in Him, then every promise will be fulfilled. For as the earth bringeth forth her bud, and as the garden causeth the things that are sown in it to spring forth, so the Lord will cause righteousness and praise to spring forth before all nations. The whole earth is to be filled with the glory of God. So, she's showing us that when the earth is filled with the glory of God, what's taking place? The latter rain, right? This is what she's saying, right? And she's connecting it with Isaiah 61. And she's saying we must not wait, right? Meaning that there's a time when the latter rain is pouring. You can't, like what Adventists do in general. Adventists are waiting. When are Adventists typically waiting for the latter rain? There's a Sunday law, like some form of instantaneous sanctification, right? Which is a symbol of the Omega apostasy, right? Some instantaneous, sudden power that just comes upon you, bang, in one day, and you're prepared for the latter rain, right? That's like peace and safety. One of the things that I'm intending to cover is the Omega apostasy in connection with the sealing and the latter rain. You can't separate those, right? We're going to connect those and show how there's a connection there, the link, when we're going to look at the two falls of Babylon, etc. So, we have the principle set forth that the latter rain is something that you ought to recognize. So we have a principle. And Sister White, when she's telling us about the Bible in Zechariah, we're told to do what? Zechariah chapter 10.
Ask for the rain.
In
the time.
In the time. That's a key thing, right? In the time. Because you can decide to ask for the latter rain in your own time, right? If that phrase in the time wasn't there. But the Bible is clear to say you ought to ask for it in its time. Meaning there's a time when the latter rain is pouring. Now, Sister White tells us that the latter rain is the refreshing, right? And in Acts 3:19, what are we told about the refreshing?
Repent therefore and be converted. That your sins may be blotted out in the times of refreshing
shall come from the presence of the Lord. Right? So you can't separate the latter rain from the what of sins? The blotting out of sins. And okay, let me read this quote, then we comment on that. This is GC 341. Is this so correct? I don't know where I got this. This is GC 611, but it's saying 341. Let me read it. The angel who unites in the proclamation, that's 611. But I don't know why it's 341 in my some typo. GC 611. It says, the angel who unites in the proclamation of the third angel's message is to lighten the earth with his glory. Which angel is this? Revelation 18. It's going to unite with which angel?
Third angel.
Third angel's message. A work of worldwide extent and one unwanted power is here foretold. So when the angel comes down, what's going to begin to happen? A work. There's a work, right? We're going to even do a bit of reform lines to show how the latter rain has been typified in the history. But you can show that in the history of the fourth angel, in every reform line, one of the things that you see is organizational work. Are we familiar with that? Yes. What happened to the disciples after Pentecost? What did they begin to do?
To organize.
Yes. There was some significant organization taking place, right? You didn't see the 7 deacons coming in, all those things in that history. What do you see at Sinai? Organization. It says worship took a more definite shape, right? It's one of the things that is emphasized a work in the latter rain history. There's a work that God's people have to do. So reading on, it says, a work of worldwide extent and unwanted power is here foretold. The Advent movement of 1840 to 44 was a glorious manifestation of the power of God. The first angel's message was carried to every missionary station in the world, and in some countries there was the greatest religious interest which had been witnessed in any land since the Reformation of the 16th century. But these are to be exceeded by the mighty movement under the last warning of the third angel. The work, you see this, the what? The work will be similar to that of the day of Pentecost. As the former rain was given in the outpouring of the Spirit at the opening of the gospel, to cause the upspringing of the precious seed, so the latter rain will be given at its close for the ripening of the harvest. Right? So when the latter rain is pouring, what are you seeing? What's happening to the harvest? It's ripening. In all logic, just from the natural, because Sister White tells us that we ought to learn from nature. If you go into a field, can you not tell something is ripening or is ripe?
Okay.
Yes, right? And we are spiritual farmers, aren't we? Yes, we ought to break forth the fallow ground of our hearts, right? But you see that principle. You have to see it, the ripening in the history of the latter rain. You have to see the harvest in the history of the latter rain. So it doesn't make sense from this quotation that that you can't tell the difference in the history of the latter rain between two crops. It's one of the principles that this quote clearly states, right? And she makes a comparison with the Advent movement of 1840 to 44, but she compares with which event in the time of Christ?
Pentecost.
Right, so I'm just going to put that here. In which year did Pentecost take place?
31.
AD 31. So, and then she compares with which history?
Millerites.
Millerites.
Millerites. 1840 to 1844.
1840 to 1844. Specifically, which date in 1840 which really marks the fulfillment of that?
August 11, 1840.
August 11. It says 1840 to 44. It was a glorious manifestation of God's power. So it was progressive. We see that, right? And it concludes on which date? Which one? Specifically? 22. So this history was a glorious manifestation of God's power. This history was a glorious manifestation of God's power. Right? So glorious. Let me just say manifestation of divine power. And then she compares it with what in our history?
Revelation 18.
Revelation 18. Well, we can put a date confidently. Obey is going to do that for us. But we'll say 9/11 because that's where it is. Revelation 18. And what do you see on August 11, 1840 in terms of Revelation 10?
An angel.
It's an angel that comes down. And it says it's a work of worldwide extent. So what does that angel do?
Lightens the earth with his glory.
He lightens the earth with his glory. And what does the angel of Revelation 18 do?
Lightens the earth with his glory.
Lightens the earth with his glory. Same history, right? So you see a divine symbol. A divine symbol. Which is something key that you see in all these histories. So let's read on. From our notes, GC 611. Just reading on. It then says, "Be glad then, ye children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God, for he hath given you the former rain moderately, and you caused to come down for you the former and the latter rain." I think she leaves out something there, because in Joel it says the former and the latter rain in the first month. So the latter rain is pouring simultaneously as the former rain. You see that? You don't have some type of break to say former and latter. You get my point? You don't have some type of break. It's former and latter in the first month together. Because it's what some people are doing is that they'll say, no, this is the former rain. When you get to midnight, whatever it be, it's the latter rain. But if you treat that phrase with justice, it says the former and the latter in the first month. Not the former, then the latter. It makes a difference, right? Because when you're looking at the opening of the seventh seal, that's one of the things that's going to be identified there. There are implications in how you read that statement, which is why I'm highlighting it. So we'll read on. She then says, in the latter rain. In the last days, saith God, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. The great work of the gospel is not to close with less manifestation of the power of God that marked its opening. So when Sister White is doing this, she's using a big line. By that I mean, this is the opening of the gospel, the Pentecostal season. Right? This is the opening of the gospel. Our history is the closing of the gospel. Former and latter. You see that? There can be some fractal truths that you can glean. But when you get the big picture first, and then you look at it, so former and latter. So she says the great work of the gospel is not to close with less manifestation of divine power than marked its opening. So this history was a manifestation of divine power, the opening of the gospel. And there are these three histories, because Joel was fulfilled in all three histories. If you use a triple application, was the book of Joel fulfilled in this history?
Yes.
Yes, it was. Joel chapter 2, right? The Lord poured out His Spirit. Was the book of Joel fulfilled in this history?
Yes.
Yes. In which sense? How was Joel fulfilled in this history? Glorious manifestation. Yeah, you can connect that, but specifically Joel, how was it fulfilled from 1798 to October 22? Yeah, it was a type of Pentecost, that's clear, because it's a manifestation. You said? Yeah, you're correct. Yeah. Yes, you're correct. The falling of the stars, the moon, etc., right? That's from Joel. It is fulfilled in Millerite history. So you have a triple application of the book of Joel, right?
But also in Millerite history, because someone can argue and say the signs in the sun and the moon, stars 1833, but signs in the sun and the moon, that's 1780. That's before the time of the end. How do we respond to that?
Okay. Well,
I'm throwing it to the class, not to you.
Okay, right, sure, class.
Someone may say
That if you're going to use the argument that Joel was fulfilled in Millerite history because of the signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, someone will tell you that the sign in the sun and the moon was 1780, which is like 18 years before the time of the end. So how do you deal with that and still uphold that Joel was fulfilled in Millerite history?
Christ connects all those dates to his coming in 1844. So it's one history that leads to the conclusion of the Millerite time period. A 1780, he is giving signs for his coming, so it's one history. Yeah.
As much as the other signs are fulfilled before 1798, but at least we still have one of the signs, the falling of the stars, being fulfilled
in 1833.
in 1833.
Okay.
So based on that as well, we are able to say Joel has been fulfilled.
Yeah.
But you have two witnesses though, because you gave the stars. What's the second witness in Millerite history of Joel being fulfilled? You get my point?
Okay.
Because the stars is one witness.
But I agree with what my brothers said, that Christ associates, the celestial signs, all of them, with his coming. So it's interlinked events, one continuous history at one level. But if you look at the Millerite writings, the Millerites actually believed that the Spirit was poured out in their history because there was manifestation of the power of God, in the sense that you had people who had the gift of the spirit of prophecy. And the Millerites understood it and professed it. They proclaimed it. If you read Jane Lofro's book called Last Day Token, and another one called, what is it called? Heavenly Visions or something. Heavenly Visions. Last Day Token and Heavenly Visions. In those two books, he identifies that the book of Joel was fulfilled in the gift of the spirit of prophecy being one of the manifestations, as seen in Brother William Foy in 1842 and Hazen Force in September 1844, which was in advance of October 22nd. So you had the fulfillment of actually your sons and daughters shall dream dreams and prophesy. And I don't think that's the only thing that happened, but that's like one of the most prominent, where you had these two men, especially favored of the Lord, with visions and dreams, and with the gift of the spirit of prophecy in the Millerite history.
And Sister White.
And Sister White in December, but someone might argue that it wasn't before October. That's why I used Hazen Force and William Foy.
Yeah.
So you see Joel fulfilled in more ways than just the celestial signs. That's the point I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, even from what my brother is saying, you may not have an inspired reference from Sister White, where she shows you that Hazen Force and William Foy received the spirit of prophecy. But you know because Millerite history was a fulfillment of Joel. So you know that it had to be. When the history records that, it has to be there. But also, I don't know the quotation, but Sister White has a quote where she talks about the midnight cry in Millerite history being an outpouring of the Spirit.
I think it's Great Controversy 410.
Where she talks about the showers of grace, there's a quote that she does as well. So you can show that there was an outpouring of the Spirit. Because she says that when she's talking about the living testimony as well, being revived, etc. But there's that quote. Someone can dig it up and share with the class. So let's read on. And then it goes to this point. The prophecies which were fulfilled in the outpouring of the former rain at the opening of the gospel are again to be fulfilled in the latter rain at its close. So this is the opening of the gospel, this is the close. Here are the times of refreshing. So in the history of the latter rain, you are in the times of the refreshing at the close of the gospel. Right?
Could we just read it?
Yeah.
Because I have it. It's 402, not 410. 402 says...
So it's 402
GC.
GC. Great Controversy 402. Paragraph 2 and 3. So I'm just reading a portion of paragraph 2 and then paragraph 3. So it says, in like manner did unbelievers who flocked to the Adventist meeting, some from curiosity, some merely to ridicule, feel the convincing power attending the message, behold the bridegroom cometh. At that time there was faith that brought answers to prayer, faith that had respect to the recompense of reward. Like showers of rain upon the thirsty earth, the Spirit of grace descended upon the earnest seekers. Those who expected soon to stand face to face with their Redeemer felt a solemn joy that was unutterable. The softening, subduing power of the Holy Spirit melted the heart as His blessing was bestowed in rich measure upon the faithful believing ones. So not only the spirit of prophecy in those two men, but the general outpouring of the Spirit of God is identified in Millerite history.
In rich measure.
In rich measure.
Because the measure is the pouring, is the Spirit. You see that? So you have two witnesses in Millerite history. It's a fulfillment of Joel. The stars and the Spirit. So you can use the triple application of prophecy to glean truths about our history. So reading on. It then says, as the former rain was given in the outpouring of the Holy Spirit at the opening of the gospel, to cause the upspringing of the precious seed, so the latter rain will be given at its close for the ripening of the harvest. Then shall we know, if we follow on to know the Lord, His going forth is prepared as the morning. He shall come to us as the rain, as the latter rain, and the former, as the latter and former rain unto the earth. So you see, you have another witness of the latter and former connected in one unit of thought. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Latter and former, not latter then former. Yes, at one level that's true. Latter, Pentecost, former, our history. But at another level, the prophecies fulfilled at the opening of the gospel will be repeated at the close of the gospel. Right? Latter and former and latter together. In that sense. Not 9/11 latter, midnight former. No, former than latter. In that sense, it destroys some things.
Not that I want to really focus on that issue. There is a sense in which you can understand a former rain being poured out at 9/11 and then a latter rain being poured out to ripen the harvest. But it's not at midnight, neither is it at this point B that they promulgate. When you're looking at it, you have to understand it within context. And that's what we always say.
Yeah.
When you look at this message, You look at the three angels' messages, you can look at it from a broad view, where the first three messages arrive in Millerite history, and the other angel arrives in our history, and that's a complete unit of thought. And when the angel of Revelation 18 comes down, he's coming down to empower the third angel's message. That's what Sister White says. But when in our history, we can also derive truths to see how the first angels repeated, how the second angels repeated, and how the third angels repeated. But that doesn't destroy the structure of the third angel being given power at 9/11 to finish his work. So also when it comes to the latter and the early, the early and the latter rain, we understand the early rain is poured out in the history of Pentecost, right? Sister White says that explicitly. And then the latter rain is poured out at the end of the world, which is in the time period of Revelation 18. But you can also see a repetition of the latter rain in our history, which does not do violence to the broader strokes, to the bigger view of understanding things. So what people are now trying to do is they're trying to take advantage of the fact that we can see repetitions and then make misapplications to uphold false premises. And it's dangerous to do that. The reason why I'm just saying it is so that we acknowledge that you can actually teach that there is, in one sense, an early rain that's falling at 9/11 that's causing the germination of the seed. And before midnight, there is what we call the opening of the seventh seal, which matures people, prepares them for the binding of experience at midnight. But that's a totally different thought, which does not do violence to what my brother's saying. That you've got the early rain at Pentecost, latter rain in our history. That has to be maintained. It has to be upheld. The fractal application is teaching a truth for us, which shouldn't destroy the other truths that the Lord has already established.
Big scale first, you see, and then you can glean the fractal applications after you know the basic structure, which is true. I'm in agreement. So, reading on, it then says, here are the times of refreshing to which the Apostle Peter looked forward when he said, repent ye therefore and be converted, that your sins may be blotted out, when the times of refreshing shall come from the presence of the Lord, and he shall send Jesus. So, one of the things that marks the outpouring of the Spirit is the sending of who?
Jesus.
Jesus is sent. He comes down, because Jesus is in heaven, right? Yes, he comes down, a divine symbol. That angel of Revelation 18 is Christ. Reading on. This is GC 341. I see my error. I have combined two quotes. That's why I was thinking it's 341. This is now 341. It says, to John were open scenes of deep and thrilling interest in the experience of the church. He saw the position, dangers, conflicts, and final deliverance of the people of God. He records the closing messages which are to ripen the harvest of the earth. What are we told about the latter rain in GC? What does it do? It ripens the harvest, right? But what are we being told that John sees, which ripens?
Messages.
Closing messages. Do we see that? We are told that the latter rain ripens the harvest. But here we're told that John records the closing messages. So what's the latter rain?
It's a message.
It's a message, right? The latter rain is a message. We see that. The latter rain ripens the harvest. The closing messages ripen the harvest. So the latter rain is a message.
And even at the basic English level, if you understand that rain is a message, that rain is the last rain, it's the last message.
Yes, it's the last message, the last seal. Yeah. So, moving on, we see that point, right? So the latter rain, whatever it is a message. It's not like some instantaneous power that comes upon you at the Sunday law and you give the loud cry. Right? It's a message. Your reception of that message determines your destiny. It ripens. Reading on. he records the closing messages which are to ripen the harvest of the earth, either as sheaves for the heavenly garner or as faggots for the fires of destruction. What do you see there? Two classes, right? He records the closing messages which are to ripen the harvest of the earth, either as sheaves for the heavenly garner or as faggots for the fires of destruction. So you see two classes of worshippers developed in the history of the latter rain, right? And you can see contextually that it's based upon the response of this message. That message becomes a stumbling block to one group, and they become faggots for destruction, but it becomes a sure foundation for another group. Do you see that? It's all based on the message. And it's key to see that how in Hebrews chapter 6 we are told about the rain that comes down and causes the earth to bring forth fruit. But it tells that the same earth brings forth briars and thorns. We see that. The same rain can produce briars and thorns. If you just look in the natural, if you go to a field and you don't cultivate it.
Yes, just another thought. It says here, he records the closing messages which are to ripen the harvest of the earth. So we have seen that the lettering comes to ripen before the harvest, isn't it? Because it says he records the closing messages which are to ripen the harvest of the earth. So the harvest is ripened before it is reaped.
Yes.
So it means the lettering comes before the harvest.
That's true. Which is something that's key to also get right from what my brother is saying. The harvest is ripe before it's harvested. Just like even in the natural, you go to a field, oh, my chibage is done, and then you harvest later, right? It's just basic principle. So we're then told, so these are two, it's wheat and tares. Because who are those that are burnt? The tares, right? Yes. Subjects of vast importance were revealed to him, especially for the last church. Which is the last church?
Laodicea.
Laodicea. What does Laodicea mean?
People being judged. Yeah. People being judged.
Judging of the people. Yeah. Last church, but the experience of all churches repeats in the last church. That those who should turn from error to truth might be instructed concerning the perils and conflicts before them. None need be in darkness in regard to what is coming upon the earth. So contextually, when you're in the history of the latter rain, one of the things that's opened up to you is what's coming upon the earth. And you need not be in darkness. Who are those that are left in darkness?
The foolish.
The foolish virgins. It's because you can show that when the Spirit is being poured, there's also a message being opened up, which is what we want to show. There's a message about what's coming upon the earth, right? Then this is Deuteronomy 32, verses 1 and 2. Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak and hear. And hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. My doctrine shall drop as the rain. My speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, and as the showers upon the grass. So what's the latter rain upon another witness? It's doctrine, right? Yes, this is doctrine. This is Review and Herald, July 20, 1897. That's a key date, 1897. It's not an accident.
Could you repeat the reference?
Review and Herald, July 20, 1897.
Review and Herald.
July 20, 1897. It will be good to read Review and Herald, July 21, 1897. See what it says in there. Yes.
But this one is
July 20. Yes, just before 21.
1897.
Yeah, 1897 is just before 21. So, something that we need to know before midnight. Right? Okay. He says, the anointed one standing by the Lord of the whole earth have the position once given to Satan as covering cherub. By the holy being surrounding his throne, the Lord keeps up a constant communication with the inhabitants of the earth. The golden oil represents the grace with which God keeps the lamps of believers supplied, that they may not flicker and go out. Were it not that this holy oil is poured from heaven in the messages of God's Spirit, the agencies of evil would have entire control over men. God is dishonored when we do not receive the communications which He sends us. Thus we refuse the golden oil which He would pour into our souls to be communicated to those in darkness. When the call shall come, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Those who have not received the holy oil, who have not cherished the grace of Christ in their hearts, will find, like the foolish virgins, that they are not ready to meet their Lord. They have not in themselves the power to obtain the oil. Their lives are wrecked. Remember what Brother Mubani was showing us about Matthew 22. When are the two classes ready? At the going forth, right? Which is for us 9/11, right? Because there's a blending of the messages. But they're ready there. They're ready. In that history, they can't obtain oil, which is very sad, right? You can't obtain oil. You're sleeping, right? The work of sanctification here is maintaining a justified experience in this history. So it's one of those things that we need to settle into. But here we're told that it's the oil that the Lord pours. It's the same as the rain. Oil, rain, different symbols for the communication of the Spirit, right? It's poured out to keep the lamps of believers constantly burning, continually burning, right? The message. And it says God is dishonored when we do not receive this message. So is it optional to accept the latter rain in its time? No. If you don't, you are dishonoring God, right? You see that? And we're told that there's the two anointed ones that are pouring the oil, etc. But we see what I'm trying to emphasize. Okay. Next quote. 3 Testimonies, page 266, paragraph 2. 3 Testimonies, page 266, paragraph 2. 266, paragraph 2. One of the things that we want to show is that you can't separate the sealing and the latter rain. They're simultaneous works. Right? The sealing and the latter rain happen simultaneously. You can't separate the two. And these quotes are going to give us some grounding on that. She comments here, she's going to use a key phrase which we need to catch. She says, the true people of God who have the spirit of the work of the Lord and the salvation of the souls at heart will ever view sin in its real sinful character. They will always be on the side of faithful and plain dealing with sins which easily beset the people of God, especially in the closing work for the church, in the sealing of the 144,000, who are to stand without fault before the throne of God. Will they feel most deeply the wrongs of God's professed people? This is forcibly set forth by the prophet's illustration of the last work under the figure of the men having a slaughter weapon, each having a slaughter weapon in his hand. One man among them was clothed in linen. With the rider's inkhorn by his side. And the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that are done in the midst thereof. So what's the sealing called by Sister White? It's the what work? The closing work. So the sealing is the closing work. And she connects with which passage?
Ezekiel 9.
Ezekiel 9.
1 to 6.
Because she says the sealing shown to Ezekiel is the same as shown to John into TM 4:45. So sealing is the closing work. And she says, these people, what do they recognize in Jerusalem? Sins. But in Ezekiel 9, what are they weeping? They're weeping for the what done? Abominations. But can you separate Ezekiel 9 from 8? No, because there's one class being sealed in Ezekiel chapter 9. But in Ezekiel chapter 8, you see 25 men what? Bowing to the sun. But do they just wake up bowing to the sun?
No.
There were progressive steps taken, right? Those, and what does Ezekiel call those steps?
For abominations.
Abominations. So contextually, in Ezekiel 9, those people receiving the seal of God are weeping for the abominations done in the church. And those abominations have to be the abominations of Ezekiel 8. Right? And one of the 4 abominations, if you do a study on the 4 abominations, what's the first abomination? What's the first abomination?
Image of jealousy.
Image of jealousy, right? Jealousy. What was Lucifer's first step?
To be jealous.
Jealous, right? And what's the second abomination in Ezekiel?
Secret chambers.
Secret chambers. For those who study Joel, what do the secret chambers represent? Spiritualism. Like when you go to like what Saul did, he goes to the witch of Endor in the cave, in the secret chamber, right? Which is rebellion. And Samuel tells us that rebellion is his witchcraft. But Sister White identifies rebellion as lifting your word above God's word at the most basic level. But there's spiritualistic things that can come upon you, strong delusion. So in that history, you're seeing strong delusion settling in. When you look at when she's commenting on Kellogg and them, she says these spiritualistic teachings, etc., these deceptions of Satan, but it's lifting your word above God's word, which is what's happening in this history, where you deny the spirit of prophecy. What's the third abomination? Weeping for Tammuz. What's weeping a symbol of?
The message crying.
Those that go forth what? Weeping shall? They shall reap in joy, but they shall bring a harvest, right? They shall bring in sheaves. Isn't we sing it? Bringing in the sheaves, right? That's what happens when you're weeping. You're giving a message. But these people, are they weeping for Christ?
No.
For Tammuz. So it's a false message, a false latter rain message, right? And which means that it's connected with the ripening of some harvest in Psalm, because when you're weeping, sheaves are coming in. So there's a ripening of the harvest. But there's a satanic harvest ripening. At the same time, a godly harvest is ripening. You see that? Yes. So there's strong delusion. Strong delusion is being poured, whilst the latter rain is being poured. Two contending principles. Do you see that? Yes. So one of the things that the people in Ezekiel chapter 9 can recognize, they can recognize a group of people receiving strong delusion. Do you see that? They recognize it in the sealing time. Right? Yes. And they are weeping for those abominations, because you can show from the Bible that when Jerusalem is destroyed, what are the prophets constantly told not to do? They're told not to weep. Right? Jerusalem, they're told not to weep. There's a time when Sister White says Christ is when he's seeing the destruction of Jerusalem. I think at some point she said he shed his last tear for Jerusalem. Ezekiel is told to not mourn for his wife. Right? So when you get to the close of probation, can you still see weeping? So when these people are crying, it's not yet the close of probation. Right? They are seeing things. And when does probation close for priests? Midnight. So they are seeing which abomination before midnight? The third abomination, right, of all those, but they're seeing the abominations. They can see strong delusion. They can see tears coming up before the shut door, because they're still weeping. Otherwise, if the door is shut, they wouldn't be weeping. Right? You can show that at the close of probation, the wicked are going to go to the righteous. And she says they will look on their garments, saying, you've been weighed in the balance, all those things. But what do the 144,000 respond to those people when they come to them and fall at their feet and beg to be saved from the plagues? There's nothing
It says they have nothing for them.
They have nothing for them. They're not weeping for them anymore. It's late, right? So it's a principle. If these people are weeping in the sealing time, it means that they can see the abominations before the shut door. They can see the strong delusion before probation closes. Yes, it has to be. Upon many witnesses, you have to see the two crops in this history of the latter rain. And the latter rain correct with the sealing. Let's read another quote, where she uses the same word, closing work. This is a great controversy, 352, paragraph 2. She's going to tell us what the closing work is. 352, paragraph 2, GC. In the typical system, which was a shadow of the sacrifice and priesthood of Christ, the cleansing of the sanctuary was the last service performed by the high priest in the yearly round of ministration. It was the closing work of the atonement, a removal or putting away of sin from Israel. It prefigured the closing work in the ministration of our high priest in heaven, in the removal or blotting out of the sins of his people, which are registered in the heavenly records. So, what's the closing work? Excuse me? The blotting out of sin. So the sealing is the closing work, and the blotting out of sin is the closing work. So we use the same principle we use here. Latter rain ripens harvest. Closing message ripens harvest. Sealing, closing work. Blotting out, closing work. So the blotting out and the sealing happen at the same time. We see that, right? And that's the argument that we want to develop throughout the classes. But blotting out is the closing work. Any questions? Just from the basic overview that we've given and the basic 10 minutes. So I'll take questions and contributions. Then we can try and...
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's saying in typical system was the shade of the sacrifice. Okay, no. I just want you to break it down. This quote that you just read.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the tip, okay. In what sense?
I just want to understand this type thing. Holy place and most holy place sort of a thing. When was the closing like taking place? Just in the typical system. That's what I want to understand according to the line.
Okay. Right. When Sister White is using this, she's looking at the basic level, right? Just what is being taught at the principal level. She's looking at the history of the Jews and connecting it with the history of the October 22 onwards. And the Jews had feasts, right? How many feasts did they have? 7 feasts, right? And you had, I think 3 in the spring, then Pentecost in the summer, then 3 in the spring, right?
4.
Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits. Then after first fruits you had the Pentecost, right? That's 4, but Pentecost was in the summer. In the summer. And then you are now at 4, you have 3 more feasts. Which are those? Trumpets,
Day of Atonement,
Atonement, and Tabernacles, right? And you can show that the Day of Atonement was one of the last feasts that was celebrated. It was the closing work of the Jewish dispensation in that sense. So when we read this quote again, she says, in the typical system, meaning in the type, she's just looking at that level. She's not fractalizing anything, right? In the typical system, which was a shadow of the sacrifice and priesthood of Christ. You see that, right? In the typical, just when they would slay the lamb, the courtyard, etc., it was a shadow of when Christ came, right? And it says, the cleansing of the sanctuary was the last service performed by the high priest in the yearly round of ministration, right? The last service. The Feast of Tabernacles wasn't a service, was it? Was it a service?
Service in
Yeah, according to her context, she's saying it was the last.
Yeah.
She's saying the Day of Atonement was the last, right? Can we qualify the yes in that sense, right? The cleansing of the sanctuary was the last service performed by the high priest, by the high priest in the yearly round of ministration. It was the closing work of the atonement, right? So she's saying that when you get to the cleansing of the sanctuary, it's the closing work for the atonement. So she's going to use type to define antitype, right? So type is the basic 10th day of the 7th month. You go in, the high priest does his work, comes out, right? In the type. And then she's going to show us the antitype from the type. And then she's going to comment on the antitype now. It prefigured the closing work in the ministration of our high priest in heaven, in the removal or blotting out of the sins of the people, which are registered in the heavenly records. So at a basic level, what happened in the Old Testament up until the cross was a type of October 22 onwards. I don't know if it's making sense. Before any fractals or anything, I don't know if you're thinking of fractals.
No, I wasn't thinking. I just wanted you to break it down.
Oh, okay. Right, sure. I understand. Yeah. I think my mind is... Because I'm thinking, you have some of these you type, anti-type, but at that level, yeah. Just at that basic level, you just look at the... just that line, in that sense. Okay.
Okay. But I want to understand from what you just said. You're saying from beginning from Moses onwards to 1844. That was what?
Beginning from Moses.
That was, yeah.
It depends on how you're looking at it. Because the Day of Atonement is what's being zoomed in on here. And the Day of Atonement would occur yearly, right? From when it was instituted by Moses. It would go on and on and on and on and on.
Okay.
Right? Typically. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add on to that again.
Mm.
Yeah, I think basically what she's just trying to do, she's trying to compare what took place in 1 year in Israel to what takes place generally in the Christian era. Because there are 7 feasts in a year, and she's connecting that the Day of Atonement was the last service, isn't it, as you are putting it, isn't it? Almost like the last work, isn't it? That's before the last feast. So basically what she's trying to do, she's just trying to point, or maybe just put it in this way, in the way in which she has put, the first feast, the other feasts have already been fulfilled, like the Passover was fulfilled, 8031, and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, isn't it, also? And also the Feast of First Fruits in Jesus Christ resurrecting, isn't it, being the first fruit. The day of Pentecost was fulfilled. And the trumpets, the Millerites understood that the sounding of the trumpet was 34 or 33 AD, when it was pointing to 1844, isn't it? So the service which followed after 1834, after the trumpets, has to be the feast, the Day of Atonement, which was the last service. I think she's just putting it in that general view. If I'm correct.
I don't know if I got it correctly, but it seemed like, not putting you on the spotlight, but it seemed like she was suggesting that the typical service for the Day of Atonement was relevant until October 22nd, 1844. Is that what you were saying?
I don't know.
No, I'm not trying. Is that what you were saying?
To the people.
That the typical, where they actually killed the lamb, get into the sanctuary and did all those things, that it actually typified, it was still relevant until October 22, 1844. When you're like from Moses until 1844. Is that what you meant?
I don't know, maybe I probably didn't get Nyasha and I kind of got him, so yeah. So I'm getting confused.
No, why I'm saying that is, if that's what you're saying or not saying, it doesn't matter. But the typical service became irrelevant in terms of it being literally practiced when Christ died on the cross.
Yes, they don't like it.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's all I just wanted to.
The typical in every aspect, including the Day of Atonement.
Because what they became now is symbols for something spiritual in the Christian dispensation.
No, I get that.
Because the Christian dispensation replaced the Levitical from that point on.
Any more question, contribution? 1 minute.
So, the closing week, can you say it began October 28th?
Yeah, at a basic level.
Alright.
Yeah.
Alright.
Just to, October 22 is like the opening of the closing work. 9/11 is like the closing of the closing work. In that sense. Yeah, so I guess we can pray. We managed to finish one section, so when we were doing the next one, we were taking up a new section. Yes. Heavenly Father, we come before you in the name of Christ. We thank you, Lord, for your word, for pouring out your Spirit upon us. May we continue to dwell upon these themes and learn to be simple Bible students and to look at things at the basic level and understand the simple truths, for the simple truths are very profound for us to understand the more intricate truths. Help us, merciful Savior, to grasp these things and help us to act these things out in our Christian experience, where I failed as a human being to convey the message to your people. I pray that your Spirit might attend the proclamation and speak individually to these people, for you've told us that you need not that men teach you, but the Comforter, the Spirit of truth, will lead you into all truth. So I pray, Lord, that we might continue to be hid behind the cross, and may you and you alone be exalted. In Christ's mighty name, Amen.